August 1st, 2023, this meeting to order. Ms. Jenkins, if you would please call the roll.
Mr. Duncan.
Present.
Mr. Anthony.
Here.
Mr. Moore.
Here.
Ms. Richards.
All right, first item on the agenda is to discuss the accounts payable check register for the period between June 16, 2023 and July 28, 2023. Register should have been sent to all committee members. Are there any questions for the administration as it relates to the check register? All right, hearing none, there's no action to be taken on that agenda item. We'll move on to consideration for approval of the administration's recommendation as it relates to the 2023-2024 casualty crime, boiler and machinery, and errors and omissions insurance policies. Mr. McNeely.
I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Ryan Gamble to come and explain the policies in the renewal.
Good evening. So as far as the package renewal this year, we went out to 25 different companies, and Berkeley, who we have been with since 2012, did come back with the best premium and best coverage that we're going to be able to get. They did have an approximately about a 15% increase over last year. The increase is all due to two factors. One, last year on our schedule, our fleet schedule of vehicles, we had 307, I believe was the number, vehicles listed. This year we're at 332. With that, it wasn't that we have just bought 30 new vehicles. What we had done in the past is right before this renewal, we rent approximately 30 buses from Kent Mitchell, Mercedes, and somebody else to fill voids. And then we add them on after the policy period was issued. Berkeley had seen that in years past, that we were doing that. They decided that this year we want all those buses listed because they want to be able to collect the premium for the liability insurance for those buses. Ms. Kim put together the list including all of those buses, and that's where the number comes from this year. The other 5% increase is they did have a rate increase across the board this year, and especially with us, currently our loss ratio is running about a 77%, and so they felt that they want that number closer to about 65%. I got them down to a 5% renewal. Everything else you will see is exactly the same as the year before, excluding the premium increase.
This isn't a question, just an observation. On the way here, I heard that State Farm had announced a 25% increase in their rates for automobile coverage, and that the insurance commissioner had just announced that he was approving that. So a 5% increase versus a 25% increase based on just market.
Yeah, insurance as a whole, both auto insurance and property insurance, which Austin will talk about later, is just, it's going extremely high.
Yeah, they said that that was primarily because of parts cost and just overall market. Is there a motion to adopt the administration's recommendation as to agenda item?
I'll make a motion.
A second.
Well, I think.
Second.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Mr. Piaz is not on.
I'm sorry.
All right, motion is made by Mr. Anthony, seconded by Mrs. Richards. Are there any questions from the committee on the motion? Any questions from any other board members on the motion? Is there any public input on the motion? Hearing none, we'll call the question and ask members to vote your machines.
Voting is open. Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
Mr. McNeely, you leaving Mr. Gamble up there? Okay. Well, next item on the agenda is to consider approval of the administration's recommendation as it relates to the 2023-2024 workers' comp insurance policy. And so we've got a pretty significant shift in how we're doing this one.
So in years past, for anyone who let's try and understand all this. What we have done in years past is the school system has taken a huge self-insurance retention to try and do everything in-house. Currently, that is at $700,000. So each claim, the school system is on the hook for $700,000, or the first $700,000, and then this policy would come into play. We do have a quote from them again this year. It's about $107,000. But looking at the numbers and working with Mr. McNeely, we were able to get a quote on a first dollar basis from two different people, one being LUBA and the other being LWCC, in which we are recommending to you. The several benefits of going this way, and the main benefit is the dividend payout that LWCC is going to offer. I believe y'all have that spreadsheet of the dividend breakdown, but to kind of summarize everything, if we were to have implemented this back in 2018 and moving forward, we would have saved the school system approximately about $4 million because of how large the dividend payouts are. After about year 5, if the number stays at this, you will be getting back approximately $1.3 million. So you'll be paying out of pocket $600,000 for all first dollar workers' comp insurance. We no longer have to deal with the day-to-day, not operations, but we no longer have to handle any of the risk management. LWCC is going to come in and do that. They're going to handle all the claims. They're going to have all the attorneys. Everything is now, we're stepping back and allowing them to handle that. I know that's a big increase, and I hope I kind of summarized everything. I wasn't sure if anyone had any questions.
Let me walk you,
Yep.
let me make sure I understand this. So when we've studied the out-of-pocket expense for the school system, looking kind of at over the last, I think y'all studied this from 2015 forward.
Correct.
On average, correct me if I'm wrong, on average, when we added in the premium, the retention reserves, our in-house case manager, all of that stuff, we were coming in at approximately $2 million a year
Correct.
in total out-of-pocket expense for the school system.
That's correct.
All right, and so y'all's proposal, or the administration's proposal, would still have us initial out-of-pocket coming in at around $2 million in the premium, correct? But in years going forward, the potential of getting this dividend refund, that over that same period, had we done it, we would have gotten about $4 million back.
We would have gotten more than that back. You would have gotten, 4.5 back is what the total savings would have been over that period of time for the school system. But that's correct. So you'd spend $2 million. The dividend grows as years go on, and it's really about year 4 and 5 that you really start getting a massive dividend. And LWCC gave us their projections of what that would look like, and it would be about $1.3 million that we would be getting back after year 5.
But even if we didn't get the dividend, the initial out-of-pocket, that $2 million is about what we were spending on average between the premium and the retention and all of that.
That is correct.
And then in addition to that $2 million out-of-pocket, we were also had somebody on salary here in the central office as a risk manager that we no longer will have to have.
That is correct.
Got it.
One other thing is, he talked about there's a $700,000 per occurrence potential we self-insure. So if you have 5 maxed out claims in 1 year, that's $3.5 million. So with this, we have no additional exposure. We're given, the insurance company's taking all the exposure. If we have a terrible year, we pay nothing extra. If we have a great year, they make money and our premium should go down in addition to so we did this at parish government about 4 years ago, and so parish government has gotten into the sweet spot that we're talking about right now, where our workers' comp is less than half of what we were paying because of the massive amount of money that Louisiana workers' comp has in reserves that are invested.
And just one, because Mr. Anthony has a question too.
I have a couple. Ms. Illy or Mr. Jinko, maybe one of y'all can answer this. Because if we go this route, I understand we had a case manager, a risk management employee. Is that person going to still be on staff, or has that position been eliminated, or is it planned to be eliminated?
I can answer that. We actually went out for advertisements to fill that position a month or two ago. We conducted interviews. We didn't find anyone that we felt like was suitable for that position, and so we didn't hire anyone. So that position is currently vacant, so we would not have to go back and try to fill that position.
Okay, good. So is this, I know we voted on a budget, last week or 2 weeks ago? This may have not been in that budget, but was it, I guess when you consider what you could have been out of pocket, I guess where in the budget is $2 million going to come from, is what I'm asking.
So all of the insurance is paid out of an insurance fund that has a reserve balance in it. And so the way this has been funded, because it's been running about $2 million a year, we've already been putting about $2 million a year into that bucket. It comes based on gross payroll. There's a percentage that's charged, and it goes into that bucket. So this, you won't see a change in the budget based on this at this time.
Okay. And this is kind of strictly out of curiosity, probably doesn't make a big difference, but you pay this thing quarterly, or you write a check all at once, just out of curiosity?
So they have about 3 or 4 different ways you can pay it. You can pay it all at once, you can pay it in installments, you can pay it quarterly. I mean, it's really up to, Mr. McNeely wants
And
to.
it wasn't
My
strictly
history is
curiosity.
We paid it monthly.
Okay.
And then at the end of the year, they do an audit to adjust to what your actual workers' comp expense should have
Okay.
been based on, because this has an estimated payroll, so the payroll could go up, could go down, so they adjust
Okay.
it to actual at the end of the year.
Isn't it smart to kind of hang on to money and leave it in an account right now? Is that interest bearing or no?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, it's in our fiscal agent agreement account. It also, there's an accumulated reserve there, because going forward, LWCC is going to take up any new cases, but any existing claims still have to be walked out. So we have the reserves on hand to walk those out and to ultimately get those closed.
Got it. Thank you.
And I do see there's other questions, but let me go ahead and get a motion on the table to adopt the administration's recommendation. Is there a motion?
I'll second.
We didn't, so we have a motion by Mr. Moore, seconded by Mr. Anthony. I'm going to recognize Mr. Piazza, but before I do that, Mr. Gamble, we did, because we were changing the type of workers' comp policies that we were doing, we did shop both types out. So we got like types of estimates for multiple insurance providers.
Yes, so like I mentioned, the renewal carrier, or excuse me, Star, who has been on this account for a while, they did offer a renewal. It was approximately at about $107,000 for everything exactly the same at the $700,000. We also went to a company called Luba, who offered 2 different options to match what LWCC did. They were dollar for dollar, but they came in at about $1.8 million. The difference with Luba versus LWCC is Luba is not going to offer the dividend almost guarantee that LWCC does. So it really doesn't make sense, because it's all about that dividend at the end of the day. They also offered a basically kind of like a deductible plan at $250,000 with a max out of pocket at $1.25 million. But still, when you start adding it up, it still comes out to about $1.8 million. It still didn't make sense to move forward with that one versus this one with the dividend plan.
Mr. Piazza.
So I'm pretty familiar with LWCC, so you put me in a little awkward position on what I can and can't say, but I know they do a pretty extensive audit at the end of the year. So my question, Mr. McNeely, is I know we have that risk management position now. Are we going to continue forward with that to handle the audit, or is that going to come from your office?
The payroll audit will be done through payroll and business services. It's just a matter of accounting for the payroll and making sure that it's right and everyone has the proper rate.
Right. That's
We
only,
only
I just
have 2
want to make,
rates, so it's really not that complicated.
okay. I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee on the motion? Is there any other questions from other board members on the motion? Is there any public input on the motion? Hearing none, we'll call the question and ask members to vote your machines.
Voting is open. Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
Mr. McNeely?
If the Finance Committee would like, Austin Powell is here to give an update on where we are on the property insurance.
Okay, let me ask you, we can do that, but also on that other policy, I know every once in a while there's a rejection where we have to do a specific vote rejecting something. Do we need?
Yes, we have to, there's both terrorism and uninsured motorists. We don't need to do it at this meeting, we can do it at the board meeting.
Okay, but will you help us all remember that we have to do that special vote to reject whatever it is we need to reject?
Yes, sir. Thank
I
you
don't
all
know
very
if you
much.
get that. Okay. All right, Austin, you had an update?
Good evening, everyone. We do not currently have the property renewal for this year just yet. As I'm sure you're all very much aware, the property market in Louisiana and around much of the Gulf Coast is just absolutely out of control. Currently, we have 10 insurance carriers who provide the coverage for Tangi. We have been working pretty closely with Mr. McNeely, Mr. Valarudo, different members in the construction team to get more updated information on the buildings. We have been studying various school systems around the state, and what I can tell you is the rate increases, there is not a whole lot of rhyme or reason to some of them. We see some districts that are further north that are taking $1 million increase, some districts farther south that are riskier taking a $500,000 increase. There isn't a whole lot of rhyme or reason, but what I can tell you is, working with Mr. McNeely, we've identified some points that we believe will help. We have looked at 103 items on the schedule that were under 25,000. Things like sheds, very, very small portable buildings, things that an insurance company looks at and says this is going to blow away almost immediately. We've decided we want to look at self-insuring those small items this year. We have bumped up our values to an average on our essential buildings on campuses, things like administration buildings, classrooms, things like that, from around 170 a foot to 200. Insurance carriers are still pressing for valuations, and unfortunately they are not going for $100 a foot anymore. They want to see bigger values on your schedule. And one of the things that we are also currently working through is FEMA requirements. After Ida, you guys had multiple requirements that they are imposing, from things like food spoilage to wind-driven rain, and we are trying to accommodate all of these in order to keep you guys in compliance with FEMA. So today we don't have indications yet, but we imagine by middle of August we should start getting at least the first 10 million of coverage and getting those numbers back to you guys. Any questions?
No questions. All right. Thank you. I appreciate that update. All right. No other business to come before the committee. This committee meeting is adjourned.